remediate the soil while building raised beds on top of it. So that means that we're laying down mulch, which you can go to any like landscaper upstate, and when they've got to get rid of that mulch, they will come, they will tell you to open up the gates, they dump it right there, and you're doing them a favor, they have to pay to get rid of it. So they put down the mulch, you put down the cardboards, you bring a new topsoil, you build raised beds, you put the new topsoil on it. You start doing cover crops underneath the mulch and the cardboard because that then remediates the soil. So it's a natural way of remediating any kind of contamination that's there. My personal opinion is that anything that's grown in a city, in a lot that might have been near buildings, have buildings on it, you should always do raised beds. Right, because you want to be, I'm very much a, when you've got kids and families eating, it's better to be safe than sorry when it comes to contamination. I know people who grow directly into the topsoil in the ground, that's not necessarily where we're going to
So there is contamination on this site?
There's contamination any place. There's contamination any place. The food that you bought in the grocery store probably is more contaminated than anything we will ever grow in that lot, right? And you talked about GMOs. I just want to let you know that everything that we do in this lot will be pesticide-free. We got to be careful. I call it organic because now organic has become a term that's regulated. So instead of saying organic, if we can't have it certified organic, you say pesticide-free. The same thing. So everything will be organic/pesticide-free, and we are not using any genetically modified or genetically engineered seeds. But I do want to give some clarity around the difference between the two. Navel oranges are genetically modified. What that means is that all they did was continue to cross two seeds, and it could be in a totally chemical-free way, until they got the kind of thing, the kind of fruit that they, or plant that they wanted. Genetically engineered is like putting fish DNA into a tomato so it doesn't spoil. So they're very different. So yes, I want to know when things are genetically modified, but it's still a very gray area because, you know, seedless cucumbers are genetically modified. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're genetically engineered. So it's a little bit different. But we're going to stay away from any of that. If, you know, we can, you know, grapes are one of those hard things, you know, that's hard to grow. But if we could go grow grapes, we're growing grapes with seeds. Because they're, you know, the thing about genetically modified things happens you lose a lot of stuff. You know, a lot of people don't know that in the middle of a grape, that seed actually contains anti-carcinogenic properties. So you can actually extract things from the seeds that help to fight cancer. But when you eat seedless grapes, you lose that because somebody figured for marketing purposes it's a lot better to have a seed with no grapes in it. So we're going to stay away from GMOs and genetically engineered things, and we're going to do things pesticide-free. Also, Green Thumb and such have regulations around using chemical fertilizers and herbicides in these types of spaces. You can't do it. So we don't really have a choice, even if we wanted to do something different. So what was your original question?
The question was, you know, where are you getting your funding sources to actually
live,
and how long would it take you to
so the thing is, like, we've got to get the keys to the lot before we can even talk about it. But there are lots of different funding sources out there. You know, the city, if you're partnering with the school, you can get up to $2,500 from the city. The great thing about community gardens and urban farms is that you can be very resourceful. There's a lot of stuff that's given away for free. So we don't necessarily need $10,000 in funding to go in and start cleaning it up. What we do need is to mobilize the community and say, hey, listen, we're having a work day, we're building raised beds, get folks from Just Food Farm School or from Bronx Green Up to come in and lead folks on how to create raised beds and then bringing in the topsoil. So the short answer to that is that we have no funding for this right now, but funding's not going to come in until we have a letter from Green Thumb saying we have this site solidified. The good thing is that because of the mobile market and the amount of visibility on us right now, people are really excited about this. So folks have started reaching out to us wanting to know how they can support and giving us different types of resources like Slow Money's Farm Fund, like Urban Farm Fund, which is specifically for folks growing food in urban areas. And the fact that it is linked into a distribution stream also actually gives us access to resources and funding that wouldn't necessarily traditionally be allocated for urban farming or community gardening per se.
So obviously there is a formula as to when you will actually get the site, when you can actually start converting it and start having crops starting to grow. So let me rephrase then the question. Now that you have a letter of support here, and it'll get voted on the community board at the end of this month, what else in the process do you need assistance with to further this and get it done? Because I know this board can help to try to speed up if there's anything, because we've been wanting this farm, because Sonia, we've seen you several attempts to get this farm going, and we already know it. So it's not a whole issue of getting it done. What else do you need after now, after we issue the letter of support at the end of this month, that we can possibly maybe get Maria or someone to start pushing the envelope?
Yeah, I think it then just becomes staying on Green Thumb to
On
making
Green Thumb?
sure that happens expeditiously. Because I actually just talked to someone yesterday who was like, oh, it took us 4 months to get the keys to this gate. We want to have the keys to, Roland is like, get us this now. Because the mayor's, the administration is changing the way the Green Thumb processes it. He actually, sort of just, kind of said like, he's gotten in a little bit of hot water because he's been approving a lot of community gardens. So now they're changing the system. So he wants us to hurry up and get this stuff to him before they are mandated to use the new system so he can approve it under the old system. Because the new system would then say that he has to take that lot. If we don't have the keys yet and it's not registered with Green Thumb, he's got to take the lot, put it on a site where anybody in the city can see the lot, and then they can start putting in the bids to do it. And then what happens is it could actually get snatched from up under us. So once we get the letter of support, then it's just about like if folks from the community board can be sending emails and calling Green Thumb to make sure that the process is being sort of expedited so we can get keys relatively soon, because folks, like right now where we are, we can't grow anything. What we can do, however, is make sure that gate gets replaced. They prune the trees in the back. They come and pull, because that lot is part like topsoil, like part soil and part asphalt, having them come in, dig up that asphalt and dropping in the new topsoil. Then we can start laying mulch and cover crops. And so from, end of November until early March, what happens is those cover crops have grown. They've put juicy, nitrogen and all that kind of stuff back into the soil, and then and then it dies down, and then it itself becomes compost, and then we can come in and get to work doing what we've got to do around early April. So this time right now is really critical because it's a critical time for us to prepare the lot for next year, and then also to then be coming back to you guys having a conversation around like, hey, we'd love for you to write a letter of support so we can get this, $20,000 grant to turn this into like, a top-notch community spot for our community.
So we're going to need from you the information on who in Green Thumbs we need to start as soon as we issue this letter of support. Because we need to issue the letter of support before any member can, send information on themselves. You had mentioned something with Associated, and this is one of the supermarkets in this community board that if I were the Commission on Health, I would shut like there was no tomorrow. Crazy.
Which
fast.
Associated?
There was one that was on Intervale, and then there's a new one that opened here. There's another supermarket that opened here close to Intervale Avenue, where Bronx Pride used to be. That I went in there, and the vegetable is atrocious. I have to. They were hard.
The C-Town on Longwood is absolutely. It is. Oh my God! I mean, I go in there and they think I'm a crazy person because I stand by the produce and I scream. I mean, we went in there the other day for one of our community meetings that happened at Unitas, and every package of strawberries was juicy, and I don't mean that in a good way, just wet and like mold grown on the top. And there wasn't even like the produce manager was like, oh, why don't we take some of these out and throw them away? They sat. I mean, it was just, yeah. And I'm asking other people in the community, this doesn't bother you? This doesn't bother you? Don't you want to say something?
And I'm glad that you just
That's the problem. People have they've normalized it.
Yes, part of this whole thing that you're doing. I would love to see the education of what our community residents need to look for, because they've forgotten what they need to look at when they're choosing vegetables, and when they actually should be monitoring and choosing the right vegetables. Is that part of your educational kind of mentality for this?
For us, this is about the intersections between financial literacy, economic development, food access to security, and food education, health education, right? So we are doing food now, but as we grow as an organization, because we're still very young, I still have a lot to learn. I'm getting a crash course in doing this. It's our first year where we've gotten like some real funding, raised some real money. I've got staff and all that kind of stuff. But really, as we grow, it's about creating whole communities in the most obtuse sense possible. And we're really looking at the intersection between all of these things. People don't eat healthy if they're stressed out. They're not eating healthy if they have a loved one who is incarcerated. They're not eating healthy if they're living in transitional housing. And we've got tons of it over here. I remember sitting in a community board meeting a couple years ago when we were talking about that joint that went up on Southern Boulevard that nobody wanted there, and they were just in the paper the other day for having too many floors that they illegally slid in there at the last minute. Like and they might be forced to take those floors down. So what happens to the families that they stuck on those 2 floors, right? So all of these things contribute to unhealth. If you live in an unhealthy environment, why is it such a stretch that you would then make choices in food that are unhealthy? I do this work every day. I'm 25 pounds lighter than I was a couple of years ago, but I'm still 25 pounds heavier than when I moved here at the tender age of 23. And yesterday was my 33rd birthday. So, so I've been here for a little while. I've had these experiences. And even though I do this work, my kids and I eat more takeout than we probably should be eating because that's what's here. And so when I leave here at 7:15 and go home to my 4 children and somebody's saying they want to eat, the grocery store has wilted wet lettuce for $4 a bag, and everything else. It's just easier to go to Little Caesars, and they're popping up all over the place. It's easy to go to Little Caesars and get a pizza for $5.
But as a note, Antonio is the health chair. Last year had a project where he wanted to get the groceries in his neighborhood to, instead of putting the Danish and the donuts at the top of the counter with the cashier, to put fruit and bananas and vegetables. And as I walk in, a lot of delis in the community, especially on my side, that he has done well with that. That's what's being on.
Yeah, the healthy bodegas in some ways, I've seen the changes.
Right.
And in some ways, there's still a lot more work they can do.
Right,
we went to
the program was closed, and we have been. The program, it was defunded.
And then they refunded it.
Yeah.
They refunded another. They funded another program with a different name.
Yeah.
That's the same program with a different staff. So
It's the
same program. But I think we went to a meeting, and Javier Lopez was sort of facilitating the meeting. We all know Javier, who's doing urban health planning out in Serrano's office, and has a lot of experience in this. And I know one of the things he said was like, they want to get better at working with community organizations and getting more buy-in because it's difficult. We have to remember sometimes we demonize the bodegas. I try to remind people that the people who work in the bodegas are us.
That's right.
They're trying to turn a buck and feed their family and get their kids through college or all that kind of stuff. Send money back home, whatever the case is. And so they have a lot of the same working man struggles as well. So I think they understand, they want to keep doing the program, keep working with stuff. I've been trying to figure out, I had a friend who actually headed up, Danya, who headed up the Healthy Bodegas program. She's been putting me in touch with folks to really try to think about, as we get this mobile market up, are there ways that we can work in conjunction with the bodegas? Because sometimes it's about capacity, right? So the bodega may be like, I don't have the refrigeration capacity, all this kind of stuff to keep this. But I definitely want you to come outside of the bodega for 2 hours outside of the day. And then think about what are the incentives so that we can support one another. So I don't, so I think there is, a lot of work that could be done. And I do think it looks, I went into for as awful as the produce is at Seatown, I did go in the other day and they had Greek yogurt. I've never seen that in the 10 years that I've lived here. They did have hummus. I was like, wow, but then if you put it on the shelf, it has to be somebody then to tell you what it is. If no one's telling you, hummus is a great way to get your kids to eat vegetables because they like to dip and it tastes good and hummus is actually ground chickpea and blah, 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 the people don't know if they've never seen it before.
So this is what I am actually need your help and needs to save on self funds. The one part in my initiative that I have not yet done, and I'm going to want to get it done before I go, is targeting these supermarkets. Okay? And you are going to kind of give me the inspiration to speed it up again. What I need from you all is to come with the health committee. Let's sit down and strategize on how to get this, because in this case, we all know that the health department does not give letter grades to supermarkets as of yet, which I think that's another way that they need to go. But we won't be able to push that envelope on that until a community board starts getting with our council person and starts pushing the envelope. And since we have Maria supporting you all, and she is the chair of the health committee on the council, if you guys sit and let's strategize together with the health committee here, to bring something and get Maria's buy-in and start pushing and start targeting our own supermarkets and start the trend going. If you guys can set up with, I'll tell, I was going to call the name out right now, Cynthia, to get, you guys to come in, hopefully sooner rather than later, maybe October, and let's strategize that, and let's start it, and let's start going, because at the process of you getting your stuff on, you can help me with that last arm of the leg, and then we can start a cultural change regarding monitoring supermarkets in this area.
Absolutely.
Okay? I'm done.
Great.
One of the things I wanted to say, thank you, Tanya. We were speaking about the next deal, that food store, the new one. I was in there I think the week before last, and I've never seen this. I'm walking, because I don't buy meat from there, because I eat very little meat, but I wouldn't even buy it in there if I did. And I'm walking through, and I actually seen a butcher standing over the meat. I didn't realize, say, with this width, it's like a vent. He was pouring Misthalin in there, and the meat's in the bag, the chicken, he's turning it to make it smell better, I guess.
No, you didn't.
Yes, I couldn't
They
even.
put ammonia on.
I know that, but I never.
They put ammonia on.
Yes, but I never seen that. Yes, but he was pouring it in the vent. Right, he was pouring it in this vent, and I guess that's he's smoking it to make it smell good, because he was turning that had the legs of the chicken. Oh, and he was turning it like that. I was like.
Yeah, and so, they don't, the health department
I've never
comes
seen
into
that.
some of them for rodent and pest complaints, but they're not, because it's not,
But not food quality.
cooked food, it's not processed, they're
You
not
gotta push on
inspecting,
that.
and the few supermarkets that do cooked food, they're only inspecting that area. Because if many of them knew, they do it because they get away with it. They do it because we have normalized it. There's no reason you should go to a grocery store and there is moldy produce right there in
Start
your
taking
face.
pictures.
Well, with
Well,
your
I take pictures.
I know you
put them
do.
on
Okay,
Instagram
good.
and all that kind of stuff. But if I'm standing there flipping out and everybody else is looking at me, like the lady next to me was like, "Hey, mommy," I was like, "You don't see that mold?"
Oh, he was like, "Cut it off."
For her, it doesn't matter.
No.
Not even cut it off. She's just not gonna buy it.
Oh.
She's not. If you go into many of the supermarkets, the one aisle that is always has the sparsest amount of people in it. They say the tip is to do a rectangle, stand in remember when you go in. The one that's always the sparsest is always the produce section, right? And because part of it's we have defense mechanisms, or if you don't know, I've had people, we had a community meeting last month, and one of the guys there was about the urban farm. We had this big salad laid out. He said, "I've never seen a salad that looks like this. We had pecans in it and green onions, blah, blah, blah." And then he says, "I don't like anything green." And I said, "Oh my God, you can't say that here." But I've heard that from many of the folks in the community. And it's not because they just have something against green, but it's like if you don't, if you don't eat things, if you don't get used to it. They say you have to eat something 7 times before you can decide whether or not you like it. People are not even getting past the first time, So if you're seeing kids and their parents give them $2 in the morning, as I do my kids, and my kids know, they try to hide stuff and smuggle stuff and find Arizona bottles in their bags. And I'm like, I'm not going to give you money anymore. But if mom doesn't say anything, it's okay to get a 50-cent Tropical Fantasy, 4 bags of potato chips. And, but then I say to my kids, make healthier choices. And my daughter's going to be, well, what am I supposed to get? I don't want to eat a banana every day. Because that's all there is. There's a banana or there's a mealy apple that's sitting right next to the boar's head in the deli case. So, there has to be a middle ground. And I think that there's not just one answer. There are various layers to this issue, so there are going to be various ways of intervention and solution. And some people will shift and some people will do what they're accustomed to.
I definitely think this is going to be a start, because we hear about it, like you said, and you go on the market. I really don't shop in this area and for food at all. However, you hear about healthy choices, you see the commercials and the drive for it. But like you said, it's not in our area. So we have to go out and go other places and get it. And then, this will definitely be a start, the whole premise of your program.
And I think in terms of, thank you very much, Paula, and I think in terms of what you were saying, in terms of things that you can help and get Maria behind, the thing that has become a barrier for us is a lot of the legislation around food. So supermarkets can get away with murder, but the small food entrepreneur, where we can really open up a lot of doors for people in this community outside of owning a bodega. But even then, that's a lot of overhead. There can be a lot of debt that can be accumulated if you don't have a ton of resources. We took a school bus and we're turning it into a market. All of the capital costs will probably cost us less than $40,000, and we will not have to pay any bank back at the end of the day, right? We've been able to do this with an Indiegogo campaign. We're having a fundraiser tomorrow, so if you want to know about that, it's at Friends of Brook Park from 7 to 10. We'd love for folks to come out and help us support so we can raise. Friends of Brook Park is on 141st Street and Brook Avenue. We would love for folks to come out, learn more about us. We're going to have performances, being sponsored by Brooklyn Brewery. We're going to have some great food that I have to go home and cook now. So it's going to be a really fun day for folks, and you get to see the bus up close, personal, get on it, touch it, feel it, all that kind of stuff, and find out like more about what we're doing and our plan for doing that, as well as just meeting other great people. But the city has this cap on, because this falls under a food truck, even though we're not making, empanadas or pastelillos or, or whatever else. It comes under the purview of food trucks. That's the permit we have to get. They have capped them at 3,000, which actually doesn't make a whole lot of sense for a city of this size. But when you think about food trucks, are you seeing food trucks other than like the halal guys in the Bronx or Queens or even outside of downtown Brooklyn? You're not. That's from Midtown. And that's through heavy lobbying from the restaurant industry because they don't want the competition. But when you're talking about areas that have food access issues, and even the USDA's own food desert report has said that in order to change the eating habits and the public health disparities, you have to have a diversity of healthy food. So it can't just be the grocery store. It means Little Caesar has to get a run for its money too, right? Even think about Chipotle. Not super healthy, but a better alternative than, say, McDonald's. And the cost is exactly the same as McDonald's. You can go in and get a burrito the size of your head, and it's less than $8. You go to McDonald's and you get one value meal, an apple pie, and you spent $9 for poison, right? In some place like Chipotle, they're using grass-fed beef, they're using free-range chicken, they're using brown rice. So I'm not advocating for Chipotle, but I'm just saying if there were opportunities for people in our community that after they get the education, that they could look at the Black Project, Sustainable South Bronx, or whatever else as a resource and say, now we will help you incubate a food business, but then they turn around and find out that they can't get permits because the city has blocked them out. This is something that like someone like Maria or someone needs to get behind because it's a legislative issue. And we need to have like a caveat that says 3,000 capped in Manhattan is fine. But the outer boroughs, once again, are getting screwed. And there needs to be a caveat that says an incentive, just like for the grocery stores, because they have, the incentives of the fresh initiative. Well, then we need to have something like that. If you are a person of color, if you are living in a marginalized community, if you are opening a food business that's going to serve the community balanced and healthy food, not only are there some sort of financial incentives, but then there's an expedited permitting process for you to hit the milestones in order to open that up. And there's nobody advocating for that right now. And that's going to be the next phase. We're just one solution, but we cannot feed everyone in the community. This urban farm will not grow enough food to feed a whole ton of people in this community. It needs to be a lot of us with solutions like this working together to create a much more healthier landscape in the South Bronx.
But what we can do is, your partnership with the community board is to help us do that legislative challenge. And then help the supermarkets get better while you get to that point that you can feed a good portion of the community.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to add, Antonio, that after that meeting that we had at Urban Health, we started working with
The supermarket.
with the supermarkets. We were able to have the Board of President give a proclamation to 3 Keep Food, because it's a healthy Bronx. Keep Food, Easy Deli, which is a little further down, and the way we've been doing it, we have incorporated the nutritional department, and within the nutritional department there is a committee that meets every month, and we had the Department of Health coming in, they train us. After that we had we invite different. Oh, by the way, the bakeries also we invited them. We invite all bakeries, bodegas around this area to come to a meeting, and we presented the model, and some of them are working with us.
How was the turnout?
No, it's been really good, and the point that last month we had another meeting with new bodega owner, and we started, because once we finish with that bodega, we have to move to the other one. So, I mean, that's...
This side here, have they come to your...
Well, we're beginning to start looking for some bodegas in that area in Hunts Point, but I'm talking about this area, the Key Food, East Deli, and the little further down.
And that's the ones that I have a problem with, so the ones that are not near Urban Health those are doing much more better than the ones over here.
So again,
I need to get started on the ones over here to kind of on either side of the community.
give me the name so I
That's
give it
what
to
I
them.
do.
You and I are going to talk,
Yeah.
you and I are going to talk, you and I are going to talk.
Not only that, Lincoln Hospital. Lincoln
Well,
Hospital has
thank
a
you guys so
program.
much, I really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
But that's why I live in that.
Sean, you make me want to have a food parade.
I know, right?
Yeah, with Boston and all the people. Now you like
You're
a
gonna be
food parade.
dressed as squash?
I know, what am I? Typical.
So,
You like that one?
Joyce, I just
Yes.
wanted to give you guys this letter of support from Michael,
Okay.
from Sustainable South
All right,
Just have it
thank
for your file.
Okay,
And
thank
it
you.
details a little bit like what everyone was talking
Okay.
about, but they were just there in the written form.
Okay. Yeah. So we have. Yeah. Shanti. Young lady, are you leaving soon?
Oh my god, I try every day to leave actually.
And when you really going?
I'm leaving September 29th actually.
Shanti has something to tell us. She's getting ready to.
No, actually it's specifically for you. I
Oh.
something for Okay.
Yeah.
So
Tomorrow.
yeah, tomorrow at 7. Yeah, so I mean, do you need a flight to that? Oh wow, I didn't know that. Okay, yeah. You look so healthy
Lincoln, I always said that.
Yeah.
I'll be ready for
Cooking
next time.
classes, we
Yeah,
have
okay.
certain, I'm in a brief.
Or maybe what I'll do is just like, you get in the cab, you get in the cab, when you get there, we'll pay for the cab. I mean, like, I'll call you tomorrow.
Let me know
Yeah,
what's
We're all like,
okay.
you know.
Yep, no, I'm not leaving for France until the 29th. I mean, the Friday's supposed to be my last day, but 2 weeks ago was supposed to be my
I
last
know.
day.
I keep seeing you. You keep being there like button back up.
Everybody's on the same page.
I'm trying to leave, I really do, Joyce. And Tanya's like, no, you can't leave. Yeah, so.
Oh, you know, we have something really nice on the educational. Folks, I love to brag about our young people in education. Would you please tell us what's happening with you?
So.
I'm embarrassed, but I don't care.
So at the end of the month, on the 29th, I'm leaving for France to do a 1-year Fulbright fellowship in Paris specifically about so I just graduated from college, and for those of you who are not familiar with the Fulbright program, it's like an international exchange program in which youth can either do research or they can teach English. I'm doing research, and my research is about how first-generation Malian Muslim women, how their reproductive choices are impacted by France's sex education curricula in comparison to their migrant mothers. So I'll be doing that.
Thank you. All the ones
That woman is from the Bronx. I mean, she's been living in the Bronx for quite some time now, so I feel very lucky to have. She tells me no one she's a Fulbright fellow, but I'm like a proud mama.
Yeah, that's I am.
Going to Paris.
So thank you so much. Tomorrow.
Yes, tomorrow. I will call you. Okay, great.
Okay, so folks, I think we did our job here this evening. So you like what you heard? It's interesting, and we're going to work towards all of
The
it.
only thing that were some issues,
With what?
I like what I heard,
What's the
but
issue?
I'll give you some feedback.
No
It
problem.
was like kind of,
Vague, something?
not vague,
Oh,
a lot of good information.
Okay.
But it was, some of it was repetitious. So having some people, you lost some people, whatever.
Oh.
You know,
Well, you can talk to us, and then bring it to us, no?
It's good to shorten it.
Well, what is it?
Because we also
wrote it
have
down?
other issues to cover that, but we can't do it.
Well, you should have told Antonio to stop hogging.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
That, see, this is what I get in trouble as a chair with
Yeah.
other folks when folks hog the table. Then it makes it look like, well, Joyce is a problem. Ms. Joyce didn't call on me and I raised my hand
Listen,
twice.
oh my God.
That becomes a
I agree
problem.
with Antonio, because that's why I sat down as chair of because I had too many things,
Yes.
not only things that happened in my life at the time,
Right.
but also in different, I belong to a lot of groups. And
Exactly.
then you burn out.
You do.
And then you don't become effective. You know, that's what happens.
That's why I'm gonna walk away
You do the right
different
thing,
come
anybody,
June.
you know, we need more people to get involved. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is one of the reasons why I said, and you sort of came along with that too, is why it's important that we can, at some point on a Saturday, meet and put out, a blueprint for us for housing, education. We don't need the other committees to do it, but we need to do that together and get the questions answered so we can concentrate on this.
This is
I know.
great because, I went to that health retreat last year for 2 weeks, and it was like, we're talking about what should be done.
Yes.
And most people are oblivious or so stressed out that we're talking about mental health too.
Yeah.
Has a connection with this.
Of course. The only thing that might be is a riffraff or not on my street, maybe people protesting because when I brought it to the tenants, and that's not even to half of them, just a small portion. Well, I mean, mommy, when are we going to get to go? I mean, they are so enthused. I was telling Tanya, that lot's not big enough. We're going to have to start building high. because I've never, the anticipation, because we've had a lot there before, and that was sort of close to most of the community, was territory. But we had, remember on Simpson Street, folks that lived here, that we had a garden with vegetables and flowers and everything, and back of Maria and Stella housing between near Westchester before they put those houses. And we're gonna bring those pictures in, and the ladies got the pictures of when they were gardening, and I mean that was the best tomatoes, collard greens, and corn that I ever had in my life. And there's still quite a few of them still living. So I'm going to get their pictures, and maybe next month we'll bring it in and let them show you of them gardening, a beautiful garden we have, until they put those houses there. I would have rather my garden than them dilapidated new housing. But anyway, that's what's going on there. So I thank you both from both committees and stuff, and